and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping yet again over to another beer from Klosterbrauerei Andechs, or Andechs if you want to use the colloquial name. The beer in question today is called Doppelbock Dunkel. True to German fashion, it's very inventive. The name is the style of the beer. It is a Doppelbock. This one clocks in at 7.1% ABV, and Klosterbrauerei Andechs is located in Andechs, Germany, in the German state of Bavaria. So if you didn't catch a few reviews ago, we did Andechs or Andechs, their Helles lager, reviewed that one. So if you didn't catch that, just real quick, the whole long name Klosterbrauerei Andechs is it's a monastic brewer. It's tied to a monastery there in the city of Andechs. So that's what the long name means, but most people would just call them Andechs or Andechs. But the full proper name is Klosterbrauerei Andechs, for what it's worth. So yeah, today, label art, same as the last one. It's just a darker color of foil on there. Brown, getting you in the mood for a bock. So no sense delaying the inevitable here. We're going to get it cracked gently. All right. And we're going to use our nice all-purpose Sam Adams glass today. This will work great for a bock. So we get that poured right in. Oh yeah. This is looking classic bock, guys. Classic Doppelbock. Nice darker caramelly malts in there, bringing out the color. We're going to get right up over this for a sniff. It does seem active in terms of carbonation. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of bread and dough and caramel on the nose. Some darker fruit. It smells more like stone fruit, like apricots coming off of this, mixed with like dough, little hint of grapes and raisins. Yeah, smells really nice. It's got a classic Doppelbock aroma. That's what you expect to get, and it's exactly what it delivered in the glass. And this, obviously being a Doppel, it's going to be a little higher ABV, 7.1. And bocks are, of course, lagers made with bottom fermenting yeast. They are not ales. Yes, there are dark lagers. In terms of color, yeah, this is sitting right in the middle of the spectrum. It's kind of a caramelly, deep caramel color, getting close to the brown stages. But it smells absolutely fantastic. Head settled down a little bit, but it's very active in terms of carbonation. I expected that to happen, but it's constantly trying to reform. It's just rushing straight up the middle. It keeps making a little pad on top, which you often get with bocks. They do tend to be quite active in terms of carbonation, but this one looks great. It smells great. Let's just jump right in and see if Andechs here repeats history like they did with their Helles. Oh yeah, that is classic Doppelbock. Yep. Oh man, this is a really good one too, guys. Wow. Okay. So before we get into the flavor profile, which I am absolutely loving as it continues to open up into layers of complexity, let's talk about the body and let's talk about the mouthfeel. It's a 7.1% ABV. That's not a low ABV range. And certainly for Doppelbock, they do have some heft. This is a big, full medium. It's a full medium. Much heavier than this. It would start to get on the low end of the medium-heavy territory, but it's a big, full medium. It feels like a full-bodied beer. Indeed, it is. Mouthfeel on this one feels like the right amount of resistance to me, and this one does, in fact, get very creamy, very silky as you agitate around the palate. In terms of the flavor profile, it's really nice. It's everything you would expect in a bock, but this one actually has an intensity of flavor that you don't get in a lot of Doppelbocks. So what I got up front was actually kind of similar to what I got on the aroma, but it's amplified and there's a lot more depth and intensity to it. So the first thing that I got when I swallowed was just this intense of deep caramelization from the malt bill. Very roasty indeed. There's even a little bit of bitters that kicks out of the back. Probably a bit more than your average Doppelbock. It's not a beer style that's typically known for being overtly hoppy, but the really deep roast of caramelization on the malts in this beer, it really does kick that through. So it's got this really nice roast quality to it that brings out some deeper caramelization, and it brings out some deeper, almost kind of nutty accents to the beer. It's really nice. That I did not expect. I expected kind of the run-of-the-mill Doppelbock kind of flavor profile, but the intensity on this one is quite a bit different than your average Doppel. And indeed, looking at this, you know, it's sitting right in the middle of the color spectrum range, but I did not expect that intensity of that flavor profile to pop out just based on looking at it visually alone. So a very nice surprise here. Guys, I'm going to jump back in for a second sip, let it re-intensify, pick it apart again, make sure I didn't miss anything else, and then we will talk about the balance and the finish. But on first sip, this is a really impressive Doppelbock. Take two. Yeah, classic Doppelbock flavors there. You get this breadiness, this doughiness, this cracker kind of side of the malt bill. Then there's this big rush of caramel, and then you realize just how caramelized it is. It's very roasty. It almost gets roasty in the sense of where you would start thinking like kind of a medium roast coffee bean, that kind of roast intensity, though it does not taste like coffee. I just mean that as a comparison for the sensation of kind of picking up these roasty elements. It's got a lot of roast to it. There's no char, there's no smokiness, nothing like that. It's not roasted to that deep of a color. Obviously, you can tell visually looking at it, but the intensity of the roast character that pops out, and even that kick of bitters, it really does pop through, and it's kind of surprising. So you do get this nice caramelization, and in the flavor profile, yeah, there's a little bit of the underlying kind of darker, richer fruit kind of accents, so slight suggestions of stone fruit in here, but it does strongly lean on the kind of grain side of the malt bill, heavily on this one, and it's very nice. And the intensity of bitters that you get, and again, this is not like IPA. If I had to put a number to it, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 15 and 30. A little tough to say, but that's how I'm sensing it to my palate. That's actually not as common on a Doppelbock at all. And it's really nice. Again, it adds just another bit of layering, another bit of depth to a really nice beer. I love a good Doppelbock. This is one that's really got some presence to it. It's not a light beer style. They do tend to have some substance, but this one is a bit bigger than most of the average Doppelbocks that I've had. Andechs has been doing this for a long time. They've been around since the 1400s. Obviously, they've perfected their craft over many centuries here, but this is a really great example again. I've not had a ton of Andechs beers, but so far the ones I've had recently have all been top tier, guys, and this is no exception. So if we're talking balance on this, the balance on this to me is really something like a Doppelbock. It's the balance between the malt bill, whatever hops they do use, and of course their yeast strain. And in this one, I think letting it lead with the malt bill being very malt-centric, malt-dominant, is very much a classic route to go on a Doppelbock. That's what I would expect from a German brewer. But just the depth of flavor and intensity that they get popping out of this one, that's something you don't always get. And that's kind of what's pleasantly taking me for a surprise. Then that added extra bit of bitters that you don't normally get in a Doppelbock. Doppelbocks and bocks in general will often kind of lead with fruity accents. This one is leaning much more heavily into kind of the grain side of the equation and that roasty element out of it, and I really like it. It still tastes like a classic Doppelbock. It's just as it opens up and continues to intensify, that's where it really starts being dominated by the roasty edge of this malt bill, and it's really nice. For my money, I would not change a thing about the balance. I think it's a bit unique in that respect, and I really like it for it, because you get everything you would normally find in a bog standard Doppelbock. You just get a little extra in this one. It's excellent. In terms of the finish, yeah, a Bock, a Doppelbock, any of those beer styles, they're not going to be known for a super, super long finish. This one's longer than average, but it's not over the top. And really what it is on this one, it's that intensity of roast and the bit of extra bitters that you get that does drive it out longer than standard, but we're not talking, you know, it's not a minute, 2 minutes after each sip. It's not like a barrel-aged beer would be. It's just longer than average, but it's really, really nice, guys. I am a fan of this beer. Andechs, so far, they're 2 for 2 for me. I'm going to take my time and sip on this one and come up my scores. When we come back, we will get this ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Klosterbrauerei Andechs, Doppelbock Dunkel, Doppelbock Dark, 7.1% ABV. Klosterbrauerei Andechs is based in Andechs, Germany, in Bavaria. So guys, yeah, Andechs or Andechs, we'll just shorten it to that. We'll go colloquial. They're 2 for 2 for me now. It's possible that I had 1 or 2 of their beers, you know, 20 years ago, but I certainly don't remember it. So this is only the second one I've reviewed on my channel. First, we did the Helles Lager that was just a few reviews ago. Now today, the Doppelbock Dunkel. And I gotta say, they are really nailing it with excellent iterations of classic German styles. I'm not surprised. They've been brewing for centuries, literally since the early to mid 1400s they've been around. And yeah, they're not messing about. Guys, this is another one that is just top tier beer here. Just a beautiful example. Another one of the many, many reasons that I really, really love getting a classic beer style from an old German brewer. So it nearly swept it across the board, guys. 2 categories that did not get a perfect score, so we're just going to jump right into the 2 in question. The first of those is the finish. Yes, the finish on this was definitely longer than your average Doppelbock. And really on this one, it was that intensity of the roast that lingered, as well as it having a bit more bitter presence than your average Doppelbock. But it wasn't as long as some. Above average though, I did give it a 7 out of 10. The second category that did not get a perfect score was the head and the retention. A Bock is another one of those very active in terms of carbonation beer styles. This one did a decent job forming, no question. It stuck around for a little while, and then it was relatively kind of in the middle of the road, collapsed. Though this one did try and kept reforming a small little pad on top as it was rushing up from the bottom of the glass in the middle there. Very active in terms of carbonation, so it did break itself down from underneath. But in the grand scheme, it was really average for the style. It is what it is, and I gave it a score thusly. Head and retention does get a 5 out of 10, which does, of course, leave a perfect 10 out of 10 in the remaining 8 categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, appearance, balance, feeling/intangible, my personal subjective thoughts category, and finally, example of style. So the total score on Klosterbrauerei Andechs Doppelbock Dunkel is a 92 out of 100. Guys, just another absolute winner here from Andechs. Absolutely fantastic brewers so far. I have enjoyed both. They have been really, really good examples of excellent, well put together, well thought out, and just perfectly executed versions of their respective beer styles. I always feel very, very silly that I don't drink any more German beers. Every time I have one, I was, man, I mean, I know I've been drinking them for decades now, but every time I come back after getting deep into American craft with all these additives, there's something about the simplicity of just a perfectly executed classic beer style that I just love. And Andechs is really, really doing it well. This is another perfect example of that, guys. If you're into Bocks, if you're into Doppelbocks, this is one you definitely want to try to find. I got mine from my local bottle shop, but I'm pretty sure Total Wine might be a pretty good bet for you if you don't have a well-stocked bottle shop, or like European or German restaurant has a lot of German beer imports. Total Wine's probably a decent bet. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Prost.